Crypto is pumping. Tech is pumping. We got a lot of geopolitical concern out there. We're joined by our buddy, Mr. House, today. Figured that was a great opportunity for all three of us to be here together. We're going to be discussing all of that and more today on Money Never Sleeps. Welcome back, everybody. Excited to have you with us today. As we get going, do us a solid. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe to our channel. Nothing that any of us says is financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're a bunch of guys who love nerding out about the markets. But please do your own research before making any buys or sells. Fellas, we saw crypto pump throughout the weekend. We're seeing it try to break out now. If I'm distracted, it's because I'm looking at the ETH charts, which are starting to make a big move up literally as I am speaking.
What a joke that is.
Anyway, we're going to get to that. We're going to do, we're going to try to figure out what the fuck is going on here. Randy, good to see you today. As always, appreciate you being here. But real quick, let me go through what we're looking at this week from a broader macroeconomic standpoint, especially here in the States. Nothing too interesting today. Tomorrow, we get services and manufacturing PMI. We also get big earnings from Microsoft, Google, and the continued health of the consumer from Visa. On Wednesday, new home sales. Guess what? Not a ton of those happening. We also have Facebook earnings. I don't think they're going by Meta anymore. Thursday, we get Q3 GDP, Amazon, and MasterCard. Friday, big day of data with personal income, personal spending, PCE. On the oil side, we get earnings from Exxon and Chevron that day. As I look at the current Fed funds probabilities, they have now removed any chance of a hike this month. It is a 98.4% chance that we're going to get a skip. For December, that is at 75% chance of a skip. I think that we may be done tightening, but that remains to be seen. Fellas, I know that crypto is on your minds as we see ETH breaking above 1710, Bitcoin 31,365. Pretty wild moves that are happening right now. I know that both of you are still remain to be uber bearish. I want to kick it to House first. What are you looking at today as we start off this week in the markets?
Man, I mean, I'm really just watching to see how high crypto is going to go. Like, I think we're at a point where I thought it was going down, and I still think it's going to. Maybe the time period just been pushed back, but I mean, it really seems like October may be in full effect. Still a lot of time to be proven wrong there, but it really seems like someone or something wants this to keep pumping up. But ultimately, I'm just waiting for if and when do we see a sell-off, right? I feel like people who weren't expecting this big of a run up are probably now eyeing or facing that challenge of, okay, if I bought in 1535, 1550, and we start seeing, we're breaking 1710, pushing that now, maybe we get closer to 1800 in ETH, 32, 33K in Bitcoin. Like, at what point do retail and do, some of those smaller whales start saying, hey, now's a good time to take profits, take some off the top, and ultimately, does that? And if it does have an impact, what impact does that have on price action?
Yeah, I think this is a time where the people who are really active in crypto, I think, could get caught trying to be a little too fancy with how they're playing this market at the time. Like, I think personally, I've made my positions very clear on here. I have my long-term crypto holdings, and I've been DCAing Bitcoin, Link, and ETH since July. And I have no real interest in trying to sell any of those positions, even though they are up, because I don't want to deal with short-term capital gains. With that, I would have to try to figure out when I'm going to buy back in. And if I knew that this would be a rational market, that would be a lot easier to do. But this market is not rational. So I think for a lot of people, the best bet is to just stay the course, because I still believe that Link at 1040, yeah, it's gone up quite a bit. But I think in the next market, it's going to go considerably higher. So could it go back down? Absolutely. Am I going to keep DCAing if it does go back down? You bet your sweet ass I am. So I think that now is not the time. Like if you've been holding for a long period of time, like say you bought Bitcoin at when it was like 18K last summer and you can take some and it's like long-term capital gains. So you don't owe as much. I don't hate that idea, but I think trying to make these like smaller trades here in the state of this market, to me personally, not something I'm interested in. To each their own, do your own thing, not financial advice. Kevin, I know you want to jump in on this. I've been holding up the conversation for too long. Go for it.
Yeah, where to begin, right? It's been we talked about it Friday, man. We saw how many transactions they were just minting and sending everything to, Binance, Kraken, Bitfinex. These are exchanges that definitely want to keep the price up, right? Whether or not that there's actual, USD backing a lot of these mints, a lot of these transactions that are being sent. But I mean, as soon as we saw it, the price started shooting up like crazy. So again, I think the market is extremely irrational right now, and it's unfortunate because that means that a lot of structures that we had, if things were rational, are now invalidated. So now we have to look for new structures. So I've actually cleared out the entire Bitcoin chart, and we'll look at it Bitcoin in a bit, and we'll just see what we're seeing right now, given everything that's happened. But yeah, I'm 100% still bearish on this thing. Again, there's huge levels that we have to keep Bitcoin underneath to see if it persists, this pump. But yeah, this is I think this is a very dangerous place for Bitcoin. I say that often, but I genuinely think that this is peak desperation and insanity right now. And people that are excited for this price to be shooting up probably don't know why this price is shooting up, and that's a really dangerous thing for people to be buying into something they don't know exactly why it's going up for a certain reason, right? There's a lot of macro factors that are still playing into this that are seemingly have not impacted the market in a way that we really have been anticipating them to. I know the markets have reacted a little bit; they've been down recently, but we haven't seen the true effect of what's going on globally. And I think that that's just we're waiting for the bottom to fall out when it comes to that situation.
Yeah, it's really tough to get a grasp on what is driving this right now. Like, I know you guys are of the belief that all the money being printed is propping the price up, and it definitely could be to an extent. We've seen in the past when there are broader geopolitical or financial concerns that crypto can actually do quite well because people want to use that as a safer store of value, which is like a crazy thing to say. I get that. But people wanting to put money in Bitcoin, they have more faith in Bitcoin than they do a lot of their regional, their own country's currencies. So it's a really weird time. Everything going on in the Middle East too. Like, I'm not about to try to, give a take on how that's impacting it because that's something above my head. This is where I think you have to. The best thing that I can bring to the table is experience and the fact that like remaining rational. Like there's a lot of euphoria going on right now, and I'm all for it. Like I hate bear markets. I hate that we've been sitting here for 16, 17 months, and yeah, we've had a nice run this year, but for the most part, it's been pretty nasty. So I'm really curious, House. I know you've been following the situation in the Middle East quite a bit, more so than me. That's for damn sure. So I'm really curious what you're seeing playing out there. And if we're looking at it from a market impact, what do you anticipate happening in the weeks ahead?
Yeah, I mean it's been really really interesting to watch unfold. So last night Yemen made a statement and they said they are ready to potentially start attacking Israeli ships in the Red Sea, which isn't something you like to see. Now it wasn't Yemen as a country. I can't remember which political group it was, but it was one of the opposition political groups who's not in power. But for some more context on Yemen, they've been in some pretty murky waters internally. There was a civil war earlier in the last decade, and ever since then they've just been very split. It's kind of been a haven for terrorism, as well as just a lot of shady financial situations. But they do have a pretty significant drone force and air force just within that party. I believe it's the Houthi party, but I could be mistaken. And that's just something that from a world peace and market stability standpoint, we don't want to see, any parties get involved. And then also just from a humanitarian and peace standpoint, any additional party that gets involved, that's more nations, more people around the world that are being tied in. And ultimately, we want this thing to de-escalate in the greater sense. So that wasn't great. But then, on a brighter side, this morning, there have been some hostage release talks. There were 2 hostages officially released, which is great to see. And Hamas is in talks right now, being brokered by Egypt and the UN for an additional 50 releases. But ultimately, I think as far as market impact, if the war does go as long as military and governmental officials are expecting, one of the numbers that's been floated around by Secretary Austin is 9 months, and that was in relation to the Mosul kind of defense stand in 2007 in Iraq. So 9 months, I mean, that's a significant number of ammunition, supplies, other resources that are going to be diverted to that region. But what that means is the military industrial complex is going to be scoring a lot of contracts, most likely. So looking at companies like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and those are countries that have, or not countries, excuse me, companies that have seen a lot of contract extensions as a result of the Russo-Ukrainian war. So I think that's the big thing to keep a look on is the military industrial stocks and those defense sector companies who is going to be called on to start upping their production, but then also which commodities are affected as a result. So namely petroleum, oil, and anything in regards to that, because a lot of the countries in the Arab nation states and in the Middle East are, massive producers of oil. And we mentioned, I think it was 2 weeks ago on the show, that Saudi Arabia and Israel had some peace talks brokered by the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, might be leaning Palestine at this point. So, that'll be something to keep an eye on. But sorry for the extended rant.
No, that was great. I would say if you're looking at Lockheed Martin right now and Raytheon, it's probably too late. Like if you look at the charts there, like the politicians front ran those, obviously. They knew what was happening. And so they went ahead and got their buys in. I'm looking at this huge gap up on Lockheed Martin back from Friday, October 6th to that following Monday. And I mean, that's a huge move right there. The people who were in the know, they made their positions. They loaded up under 400 and now they're up a nice 20%. So, or like 10, 11%. So you love to see that. That's great. I mean, honestly, the best thing you can do financially is get yourself into politics, because then you can just insider trade. No one's going to do anything about it. Kevin, why don't you jump in here? Why don't you pull up, if you don't mind, let's start looking at some charts. Let's look at the charts for Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, and then we can move into crypto from there.
And then before we get off today, we are going to talk about bonds real quick, because there is something really bad that we're seeing with bonds as well. So Lockheed Martin, that's LMT? Yeah.
LMT.
Yeah, you can tell I don't have any position in Lockheed because I don't remember the ticker. Here we are at 448 right now. So yeah, you can see where it shot up, right? Let's see. This is Friday, October 6th. If I'm not
over the weekend was when things escalated, and then when the market opened Monday, just.
So there's a pretty good gap in that range right there, right? So we can just find this right there, come down to there. You can see between 402 and roughly 423, there's a good gap. Obviously this price, if things do escalate, might squeeze higher. That's very possible. We can see that it's extremely overbought right now in the daily. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a collapse again. This looks like, if we go on the 4-hourly, shorter time frames within this range, pull up the parallel channel, trading right there within a parallel channel. You can mark it here, right there. Look like it's wicked up a little bit above it. But I mean, it's just trading in this channel, right? And eventually it is going to come down and test this gap right here. Obviously there's a lot of stuff going on, in the Middle East, and I personally don't know if there's anything that can be done right now, because I think there's a lot of pieces that are already set in motion. And I honestly think that a lot of this also stems from what's going on, globally when it comes to markets. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. So yeah, in a rational mindset, I would think that this would probably come back down and fill this gap. However, the question is, this something as big as, escalation within, the Middle East pushes higher, it's very possible. So, we got a lot of resistance. You got resistance at 479. You got resistance at right around, let's say 492, and resistance at 508. So there's a good chance it could still push up higher. I think we're not going to see it push up higher until something does happen, though. I think that's going to be, where you're going to see a lot of retail kind of pour it back in. But if it does decide to fill that gap, I wouldn't be surprised if some people are definitely buying in that area so that they could ride another wave on up. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how this one plays out over the coming weeks. I think that you'll probably see some price discovery when it comes to that. Which other stocks do we want to check out?
I brought up Raytheon real quick.
Raytheon, what's that one?
RTX.
RTX. Oh, I saw this one earlier today. Yeah. So this one's down a little bit, right? As we can see from throughout the year, but it's pushing up today roughly, what is that? 1.2%. It's not bad. I don't know. It's kind of an ugly chart, isn't it? Looks like it's just on its way down.
So they had an announcement in July they weren't going to be able to meet some sort of contract. There's a delay to 2025 involving a government contract, and that dropped them from low hundreds into like the 80s, and they just continued to kind of bleed down a little bit until the past week, or not past week, but October 6th, same time as Lockheed.
Very interesting. Yeah, and you can see on the monthly and on the weekly, they're extremely oversold. Weekly, it's coming out of the oversold. It's going up. But you also have to notice that we do have this right over here. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. Right in that section right there, we got a death cross that is looming. Whether that gets filled or not, who knows? If something bad does happen, I obviously anticipate this price to shoot up almost the same style that Bitcoin's done in the past few days. Maybe that prevents the death cross, or maybe get a death cross that it's a fake out where, it crosses, but then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, it's a golden cross once again. Again, these global events are definitely going to impact a lot of these stocks, especially Lockheed Martin, these military ones. RTX, I wouldn't be surprised if this one is it's definitely oversold in my opinion. If we look at this on the macro, there's a good chance that we could be finding maybe some support on this trend line down here. Let me see if I can test it real quick. Can't even speak right now. I don't know. Is there anything historically? No. So we're just bouncing off this line right now. Let's see if it holds. If it does bounce off of this and we keep pushing higher, then I wouldn't be surprised if we do go above the 200 EMA, then see if we can test the 50 EMA on the weekly. But for the daily right now, maybe these gaps are the ones that we want to fill, right? This gap between 80 and 83, then right over here from 88 to roughly 91. So I could definitely see these gaps being filled. And again, this does seem like as soon as news does break, I'm pretty sure that this is going to see some price action in one way or the other, most likely to the upside in that given situation.
All right, let's get into crypto then. We have to start with the big boy. Let's go to Bitcoin. I want to hit on ETH, Link a little bit because that's been one of the biggest movers of the weekend as well. But we got to start with BTC. Yeah,
you guys like this chart? It's absolutely clean right now, right? No crazy lines. It's just bars and candles. Had to fix it up a little bit because, again, a lot of things got invalidated. But I do want to just point out a few things right now that are important to see. So I'm going to pull the parallel channel. This is one that we use all the time. Just used it a few seconds ago. We want to see how this price action is, right? Maybe we have to adjust it to that. It's kind of a crappy, I don't like this parallel channel at all, just because you kind of have to move the lines, prior to that, it would have been like this, but obviously we're above it right now. It's going to depend on how the close is today. If we close below that, then obviously this is still valid. If not, maybe we have to adjust it a little bit more. And I don't necessarily like it in that sense. But, once we look at parallel channels, when they're like that, where they're climbing, making higher highs and higher lows, they usually break to the downside, right? Same as when we see this one on this side right over here, right? Lower lows and lower highs eventually just shot straight up. And then that's what put us into the height of 2023 back in July. Question is now, will this break down very similar to how this side broke down? We're seeing, pretty fast movements up to the north, or I keep saying to the north, but to the upside. You can see that we got the same thing back here in, March of 2023. Eventually, it did break down from how high it did shoot up, but it didn't go, below this critical level where there's no support. So that's going to be the important thing to see. But I think that we need to
real quick question for you. Everyone on Twitter who likes to classify themselves as a technical analyst was bringing up this 31,000 level as real big historical resistance. Can we maybe zoom out further and kind of look back at previous times where it was resistance and, how many times it's hit head on there or what kind of structures or anything like that? Because if this is an important level, and also like, when does it need to close above that for us to feel better about its continued move to the upside?
Absolutely. Let's just pull this. I'm going to make it a white bar, and then we'll do 4 so we can see it. So that white line is going to be our resistance, right? Historical, resistance throughout Bitcoin. Really, the only place I'm seeing any type of resistance is probably back here in May of 2022. So roughly, what is that? Around 3 Arrows Capital, if I'm not mistaken. And then eventually,
right before that.
so that'd be Luna. Luna would have been 2022 May. Yeah. So that we wicked down there, we came up, we tested it, and then we got rejected. And then we started closing significantly below it, right? We came back in later in that year when we got that little bit of a rally, or this year actually in April, we hit roughly 30,000, kind of got rejected from it. We did wake up to that level though. And then we came back here once again in July. That was off the XRP and all that news, and that got pretty much won the case against SEC. And then here we are again, and it's testing it for a third time. This is a triple top in my opinion. This is 1, 2, 3 times within a given move to the upside, a given trend. Usually you want to see this break above it and stay above it, but there's a lot of signs that are really causing me for concern right now. And look at how low the volumes are. I can't even pull up the volumes because of how low they are. You have to like zoom in like 50 times. There we are. But compared to what we're seeing over here back in March when there was a lot of volume post SIVB, well, I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense why the price is shooting up and that significantly right now. If there's going to be a lot of volume that's picking up, especially if the price is above 31,000, the volumes remain low. That's I don't really trust the validity of a given move. But then look at the stochastic RSI, and for the past few days, we've been completely overbought. I mean, it can't get more overbought than 100. It's been 100 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Today's the 5th day that it's been at 100 and 100 on the stochastic RSI. So that's not a good sign either, right? So we have a lot of resistance at this level, given how much we've hit it this year. We are completely overbought on the daily stochastic RSI. We should find some type of move to the downside. Even if we pull up the weekly here, you can see that the weekly got really overbought fairly fast, right? We're above the moving averages, but we're finding resistance here and probably finding support right now in the 50. So I think we're trapped in this little range. And if I could pull this up, I don't know where I put it. I had it on the charts earlier. Let's see if I can find it real quick. But here it is. Perfect. What I'm seeing more than anything is just this. And I talked about it on Friday, but this is a kind of a perfect head and shoulders pattern. And the question is now, are we able to keep that, right shoulder where it is for a given amount of time for it to play out, right? We can't have it go above 31,800. And if it doesn't go above it, we have to start seeing this price come down pretty significantly in the coming days. We have to see it at least start forming very similar patterns to what we saw back here in April, what we saw back here in late July, once, the news kind of pumped the market and it started to calm down. I want to see the same thing here on this side. That way we can see that, okay, this is a triple top, head and shoulders. Eventually this is going to break. We lose the neckline here at 25,504. Well, then obviously we're going to come test down lower. But there's a lot of support here at this level too. So it's really, really interesting with Bitcoin right now. This is the pattern that I'm seeing. I want to see it come to fruition, but I'm just very cautious right now. Again, 31.8, that's the level to hold. If that doesn't, if it goes past that, then, this is another structure that we have to kind of throw out the window.
All right, let's take a look at ETH. It got up to 1710, just went below 17. It's right back, like dead on at 1700 at the moment, trying to fight for its right to party, if you will. What are we seeing in the charts here?
Yeah, I'm seeing one again, testing resistance at this 200 EMA on the daily, right? It wicked right up to it, and now we got rejected from it. We're trying to see if it's able to close above it. But again, we have to look at volumes are dead. Once again, volumes are extremely low for ETH first off. And then when we go over here to the stochastic RSI, we can see that it's extremely overbought. It's at 190.
Are you trying to tell me that my weekly buy isn't moving the volumes, Kevin? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, unless you got a weekly buy full of TUSD on Binance only or Huobi or Bitfinex, it ain't gonna work out that way, buddy. But yeah, this is just another structure where it's like, okay, it's going up, it's testing this 200 EMA. We already got the death cross coming in, so now the 50 is obviously going to start creeping up the more days that we close above the 50. I don't know if this is a bigger sign of, resistance. It's a lower high as of right now. Could this go up a little bit higher? Sure, but this was a level that we kind of talked about. We joked about 2 weeks ago. It was like, yeah, could the price shoot up here? Eventually it did. So that's why you have to always keep an open mind that things can change at any given time. I don't know if it's going to push up above it. And if it does, well, then our next level of resistance is around 18, I would say around 1800. So interesting to see how this one plays out. But again, I don't know. I don't know how manipulation is going to play a key factor into it. I want to pull up Bitcoin dominance real quick. Bitcoin dominance was actually the highest it's been since April of 2021, I believe. Earlier today, I don't know why it's not showing on TradingView, but it went up to like 52.8. That's a huge percentage move. That means that even despite all this price kind of pushing up and then all these alts going up still, Bitcoin's dominance over the entire market cap is still fairly strong. I think there's a good chance we could see 53, given whether Bitcoin pumps or it dumps in this given range. So I'm really interested in seeing how that plays out going into the next few days to weeks. But Bitcoin dominance, I'm not giving up on. I'm still extremely bullish on that, despite whatever's happening with the alts, even though they're bouncing pretty well. I mean, Solana, fucking Link, Matic, they've had amazing days this entire weekend, but still not giving up on Bitcoin dominance. And that thing decides to rip up, or Bitcoin decides to absolutely get dumped on, those pretty gains that we had on Saturday and Sunday might disappear fairly fast. So that's just one thing I'm keeping in mind.
Solana was an absolute piss missile this weekend. Went up past 31 earlier today. It is back sub 30. I'm curious for you, House. I know that you're much more active trading crypto than I am. Basically, anyone who trades crypto is more active than me. I just kind of buy this shit and hold it. What have you been looking at from a trading standpoint for those out there who are involved in the trading game?
Yeah, not Sol. I honestly, I feel bad because we have Jweb and I have a mutual friend who's huge on Sol and is very, very, very bearish on Matic, and it kind of rides Kevin's stream of being bearish on Matic. But no, I mean, from an architecture perspective, I've never been huge on Sol. They've got some great partnerships. They've got some great projects going on in the ecosystem. But no, I mean, in general, I'm really eyeing some of the GameFi tokens. There's one blockchain game I've been getting big on, which is Parallel, and we've talked about their token Prime before. They've been doing some really cool stuff. They've been setting up tournaments and had a lot of affiliated streamers and other gaming guilds wanting to set up tournaments and paying out in their token. You can buy cards and other stuff within their ecosystem using the token. And after its initial airdrop back in the spring, a lot of people dumped the token. But ever since then, it seems like it's been slowly going up. The game just got listed on Steam, and I think it's coming out of beta soon. So no, I mean, the game's gotten great reception, and I think, as long as they continue to put in good token sinks, I think it'll do well. But personally, I want to buy the token because I really like the game and I want to enhance my in-game experience. But other than that, a lot of games dropping tokens, and they've been received fairly well, not necessarily dumped as we've seen with airdrops in the past. So there was Big Time recently that dropped along with a few others. The Merit Circle DAO token actually just went up, I think, pretty significantly today. They passed an in-house proposition that was received very well, and their token shot up as soon as the proposal passed. So yeah, I've been eyeing Merit Circle and Prime mainly, but also Link. I've been DCAing into Link as well. They've been having some fruitful discussions within their community and their core dev team. So yeah, really enjoying what's going on with them. And I actually saw a really funny tweet the other day where a prominent influencer was tweeting something about all these coins are garbage, yada, yada, yada. He listed some off, and someone replied, he's like, okay, what about Link? And he's like, well, the problem is with Link is you can't say, but the tech's not good, because it's actually used by a lot of people. And I thought that was a pretty funny argument. But no, I mean, yeah, I'm not huge on too many alts, but I think those three in particular, those are some ones that I've been having my eye on, and I'm doing research into a few others. I'm really waiting to see ultimately where the market goes as a whole, because I'm trying to get in at an optimal time, not necessarily trying to time the market, but I want to make sure I can get a big enough bag that I can hold it, spend it, be satisfied.
Yeah, we're looking at Link here. I have it pulled up on the monthly, and it's finally back at a level where it was in May of 2022. It spent over a year just churning sideways, and maybe it goes back down and we go back to that point of churning sideways. But man, like, it's, as someone who, like I said, I was DCAing it in like the winter of 2021. I stopped for a while. I started DCAing again. Like, it's just nice to see it finally move up past $10 for the first time in over a year. So, Kev, as we're looking at this, are we hitting a point of exhaustion with Link? I'm not saying to sell any of it, but maybe I turn my DCA off for a few weeks and then pick it back up. I don't know, but what are we seeing in the charts here?
All right, so just first off, when it comes to Link, usually when it pumps, there's usually a decent dump fairly soon after. And again, I think this consolidation period that we've been putting in for a long period of time, there's so many levels of where we could look at. Look at this from August 2022. Inflation's at 10%, dumps by September down to $6 after being at $9.50. You can look at it here. November 2022. So FTX dumps all the way down to roughly $5.53 from a height of $9.46. And even when it's smaller, $8.39 here in February of this year, by the banking collapse, you got $5.86. So what I'm kind of pointing at is this doesn't necessarily have to be in line with things, but it seems like Link pumps into what eventually turns out to be extremely bad news. I just listed 3 terrible things that have happened, and right now we know that there's also conflict going on in the world. I'm just saying there's a reason why things pumped before, because there's maybe people are just trying to liquidate positions and stuff like that. But this is a significant move, and these on average make about 40%, go from 40% down from the height of whatever the top of that move was. So if that's any indication of where we currently are from the height of where we went this weekend to where we are, I'd say 40%. That puts us around $6.55. So I'm just keeping that in mind. I'm not saying that it's going to go down there, fast, but I do think that there is some truth to what's going on in this consolidation period, because it hasn't broken above or below. I think if anything, this is a pretty good liquidation event. And I anticipate there to be a massive liquidation event still on the horizon for crypto. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing is back below $9, $8.50 in the coming weeks. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not gonna go all in and say, I'm going to short Link right now. I really just don't care about Link, because I think that the important thing is to buy it, a really good level. But, the higher it goes, the deeper it also goes when it comes down. So for me, I still remain extremely bullish on buying Link sub $5.40, which is below this level. I honestly was looking at between $2.90 and $3.83. So again, that's kind of a bearish take on it, but I do think that there is still a good amount of room for Link and a lot of these other alts to bleed out continuously.
You can make another bet if you'd like.
If whether it goes down below that or not?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to do a perpetual bet or no? Do like a futures contract?
No, I don't want to do that. We could do like our Matic bet, where we has to stay above a certain price at come X date.
A year moving down? I mean, a year from now, or what?
Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out and we'll talk about it.
We'll come next time we're on the show. We'll come up with the terms. But I think that's the case for a lot of these alts. Like even Binance, fucking piece of shit coin. You guys know how I feel about this one. But again, these moves, they go up, they come down. This is actually putting in what looks like a bull flag to me. So I'm very cautious. But the technicals and the volume, nothing really makes sense here. And I'm going to get out of crypto for a second. We can wrap up the show with this, but nothing in really is making any sense anywhere you go, right? The VIX is down 7.28% today. The dollar was down significantly today. The euro's up, which is kind of funny considering that the euro is also putting in a massive parallel channel, that it just broke out of a massive parallel channel. So I think that there is some truth that this could break down at some point. There's a lot of conflicting signs across the board when it comes to not just crypto, but TradFi. Gold is roughly down $7.75 today, but also the dollar's down, right? What type of sense does
down? It's a weird.
Exactly, it doesn't make sense.
It's a day to do less and just see how things play out.
Now the question is, I'm going to share this article real quick. We don't have to read it because who the fuck wants to read this when I'm just going to tell you what it's about. Bill Ackman, he's what do you call it? Pershing Square Capital Management. He pretty much covered all of his shorts on bonds, right? Bond market is extremely shitty right now. That's why we're seeing the yields go up because the bond prices are so low. That's a question that we should be, asking. Is him saying that he's covering his shorts to the point where his puts to the point where it's like, okay, maybe it's time to start buying bonds. Well, the yields are pretty high. I know they took a little bit of a tumble once, this article came out, this tweets came out, but we really have to question whether equities are too expensive right now, and maybe people are going to feel extremely comfortable and extremely safe in the bond, in the bond market, because hey, 4.85% isn't bad if it's guaranteed when you know that there's going to be extreme turmoil in the market. So I'm really questioning what's going to happen with equities. I think that there is a good chance that there could be a massive sell-off in equities and that we're going to see people flee to bonds, and that's really what I'm kind of waiting for. This is kind of a good indication of, okay, this is where a lot of people, smart money are necessarily putting their money. Now, do we question? Should we question this guy? Yeah, always. But just pull up the U.S. 10-year. This is the bonds. Obviously it tries to stay within. This is what it looks like when it's trading. It's either above or below 100. This pretty much tells you where the value is, but the lower it goes, the higher the yield goes. So we can see that there is some negative correlation where the price is going down in the U.S. 10-year, right? This is the bond price. But then we look at the U.S. 10-year yield, and it's doing the exact opposite, right? So now we have to be cautious here. Do we think that the yields are going to crash fairly soon? Well, it would really depend if people start squeezing the shit out of the bonds themselves. So I'm super bullish, I think, on bonds for the time being. I know it's not necessarily a thing I would really want to say, but I think a lot of people are going to be fleeing equities fairly soon if something bad does happen, and we're going to start seeing a lot of money flow into the bond market, maybe gold, precious metals. But I think this is where a lot of liquidity that's still trapped in the market is going to eventually flee to. So this is one thing that we need to keep in mind. We'll keep an eye on it, over the coming days, weeks. But I'm very bullish on bonds, and that's fucking wild for me to say.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. And in the words of the great Wu-Tang Financial, make sure to diversify your bonds. I appreciate everybody who watched us today. If you have not yet, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop some comments, share us out on social. We'll be back every day this week covering what is going to be a volatile period in the market. We hit, we're past the boring season. We're through summer, and now is when things start to get real. So I hope everyone is staying safe out there. All the best. And I appreciate you all. Have an awesome day. House, Kev, thank you as always. But we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.